Hello, everyone. We are on another live stream, and I am very excited to talk about the Middle East today and the UAE and how digital transformation and cloud will help this region to really prepare for the future and a life post-COVID. I am very excited to say that I'm joined by three great panelists. I've got Yati Chandani from IDC. You are the Vice President and the Regional Managing Director. You joined me on another live stream recently, so it's so nice to have you back. Then we've got Andrew Sutherland, who is the Senior Vice President for Systems and Technology in EMEA for Oracle. And we've got George Epen, who is the Group CIO for Petrofac. It's so nice to have you all with us today. Maybe you can just introduce yourself very briefly and give anyone listening a quick overview of who you are and what you do and who you work for. Do you want to kick this off, Yoti?
Sure, I can, Bernard. Thank you. And it's great to see everyone again. My name is Jyoti Lalchandani. I'm the Group Vice President and the Regional Managing Director for IDC, covering the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa region. I'm based in Dubai, and IDC, as you all are aware, is a leading ICT market intelligence and advisory firm, and we focus purely in the ICT industry. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of the insights with all of you today. So thanks for having me.
Very good. Now it's so nice to have you with us. Andrew, how about you? Do you want to give us a little overview?
Oh, of course, Bernard, and thank you very much also for inviting me to this call. It's a great pleasure to be here, folks. As you can see, my name is Andrew Sutherland. You can see it there. I've been in Oracle for longer than I can remember. It's been over 25 years now I've been with Oracle, actually. So seen it right through a lot of the transformations in the past, and of course now very thoroughly a cloud company. I'm here sitting in England at the moment, where there was a lovely frost this morning, so there's ice outside as I join you from here. Very different, I'm sure, to many of you. Looking forward very much indeed to the conversation. Back to you, Bernard.
Very good. George.
First of all, thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. So I am the Group CIO of Petrofac. Petrofac is an oil and gas EPC company. It's one of the biggest EPC players in the world. We are actually operating across the world. I am based in UAE, where our significant Middle East operations are here. What I do in Petrofac as part of my group CIO role is drive digital transformation and get ready Petrofac for all this decade.
Very good. So obviously digital transformation is is so important for every company around the world today more than ever. So what do you see are some of the key technologies that are driving digital transformation in the region, in the Middle East, in the UAE? Yoti, do you want to kick this off?
Well, from a technology perspective, we are seeing, of course, a lot of investment around cloud. And we are seeing, of course, a greater focus around infrastructure modernization, and cloud is, of course, at the centerpiece of that. In addition to cloud, there is a significant uptake around security. So, as a lot of the organizations go digital, acceleration of digital programs, there is a greater emphasis around building digital trust programs within organizations. So that's the second big trend. Thirdly, we're seeing a lot of modernization of enterprise apps, and I'm sure we'll discuss it at some point today. We're seeing greater investments in areas like AI, investments in RPA, automation. So those are the key areas that are really underpinning and driving digital transformation programs and projects across this region. Our research suggests that there's even greater acceleration to digital given the disruption that we've all witnessed or are witnessing right now. So a great driver for digital transformation across this region.
Very good. George, what are some of the technologies that are on the top of your list in terms of transforming Petrofac?
So I think so. Whatever Jyoti mentioned, we're kind of touching up everything. Like, so to me, to go to your digitization or digitalization journey, you start with fixing the basics, right? You should have fundamentally, your basics cleared first before you start your aspiration to go for your digital journey. And when you look into it, you will, of course, you will have an opportunity to modernize your existing application, reduce your vendor landscape, because some of the time what you will have is actually you keep, developing things over a period of time, and at some point of time, we get used to it, right? So this is where we trying to move things where we can centralize, we can consolidate, and put things from on-prem to cloud, right? And if you think about it, right, why cloud, right? So a lot of your operational inefficiencies about keeping your systems patched, always the cost of running is different thing, and agility, right? When you try to do things on prem, if you want to develop a new capability or feature, the turnaround time is much larger than you spin off a new service in cloud, right? And security, fundamentally, you can't operate if you're not secure, right? So there are a lot of aspects which we are looking into to make sure that we hit the digital transformation in the correct way.
Very good. Andrew, what are some of the key technologies you are seeing that will really spearhead the recovery in the Middle East?
Well, Bernd, I think the question is actually, if you look at it, it's really interesting. What drives what? Is it technology driving the change, or is it a desire for business outcome that actually pulls through technology? Sometimes it's difficult to know which is the push, which is the pull. I remember being of the age now. A lot of people thought it was the Beatles who invented the concept of flower power in the '60s. But actually, it wasn't really. It was other people who thought of these things. And the Beatles were very, very good at tracking and following it. But here, I think I'm going to make the argument that for the most part, it's actually our desire, our business desire to achieve new business outcomes that really makes certain demands of our technology. And what we want to do is we want to see our economy grow more quickly. What we want to do is see a trusted environment where large numbers of people can take part in transactions. And what we want to do is have that in a very efficient environment. That drives automation, security, and cloud. Guess what? Exactly what the guys have said. So whether one's pushing, one's pulling, doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But these are certainly the three key technologies that we're seeing being adopted today.
Yeah, very good. This is exactly what I'm seeing as well. And I think, George, I can hear a little bit of an echo. Would you mind going on mute for a bit? And then I think, thank you. So this live stream, as always, is for everyone listening to it. We've had people join from all over the world, which is always nice. I was just having a little look. Let me just have a little look through the stream of who we've got here. We have Mohammed saying hello. We're saying hello back. We have got Irfan from Dhaka in Bangladesh joining. We've got Girish from India joining. We have got Mokhtar from Spain. We've got Indonesia, India. As always,
you need to get a global map, Bernard, so we can have little lights where everybody is, and we can see who's nearby.
Yes, so we've got Javi from Caracas in Venezuela. We've got Aaron from the UAE. That's good because this is the region we're talking about today. We've got someone from Kuwait. Someone was just shouting out saying hello to Andrew, which I've now lost. So as I said, feel free to say hello, ask questions. This makes it so much more real for us to see who is here. We've got someone from Turkey, from Senegal, from Argentina. It's so nice to see everyone on the stream. So we talked about some of the general technologies. Cloud is obviously a key technology that has enabled organizations to carry on operating throughout the pandemic. Lots of this will set up organizations very well for the future. has enabled so many things like working from home, enabling what we're doing here now. So do you feel that cloud adoption has been accelerated in the region, and what are some of the key use cases that you see around cloud? Do you want to kick this off, Andrew?
Yeah, sure. So yes, frankly, cloud is accelerating across the globe, of course. And again, I'm going to argue that whether it's push or pull, is it technology enabling or is it business needs pulling it? But cloud's accelerating. And I think if you look at what do you need to get an economy growing, what's necessary to get an economy going, not a lot. If you get two people together who've got something to exchange or trade, it might be an idea for a goods, it might be a flower in terms to swap for a can of juice. If you got two people who want to in some way exchange things and you have a trusted environment, then you've got an economy. Now, the more people you have, then the more you're going to see your economy grow faster. And that's what cloud really we are seeing, Bernard, bring folk. You can get the volume up, more people in the room. Our great-great-great-grandfathers and mothers, as they were traders, they would have been lucky to see a few hundred people every day involved, coming into their stores. Now you can literally have millions. Your economy is going to be bigger and faster. And cloud's giving us that sort of scale. So yes, is the simple answer. This is the technology which is giving us scale. I would mention, there's a couple of things in particular which cloud can do to help spearhead this economy growth, which I see happening particularly in this region. There is a desire for speed. There's no in the past, if I look at the sort of hurdles to building an economy quickly, getting people together and using technology to do that, one of the things used to be procuring the equipment, putting the equipment into place, using the skills in order to build it, etc. Cloud just does away with that. It brings a much greater speed to market of whether it be your ideas or whether it be your goods that you're trading, etc. And that's a tremendous advantage. The other thing, which was always a slowdown in the past, was access to skills. And again, that's never easy, and regions vary around about the globe. I look across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and have done Asia Pacific as well. Access to skills can be very varied, and that has a huge impact upon your ability to grow an economy quickly. Cloud helps with that. It doesn't remove that issue, far from it, but it helps because there's so much more automated as part of cloud. There's so much more which is done automatically for you within a cloud environment. You could rapidly provision an environment, you could rapidly make an environment secure, that you're able to get there more quickly without necessarily having all of the skills at your disposal. That's leading to a very quick uptake in this region, particularly of cloud, and the resultant positive impact upon its economy.
Very good. George, you've already touched on the fact that you're adopting cloud. So what has been the cloud journey in Petrofac, and have you seen an acceleration to the cloud?
Absolutely. Before I touch upon our cloud journey within Petrofac, let me share something similar to what Andrew's mentioned, right? So I have thought about this, right? What if this COVID pandemic happened 20 years back, 15 years back? How do we operate it? One thing which clearly, made all of us think in the last 7-8 months is relook what was critical for us and what is not so critical. Before pandemic, if I say that, okay, I'm not giving printers to, folks sitting in my office, people will say, hey, we can't live without printers. But there are people working from home for the last 7-8 months, and they can live without printing, right? So I think we all, technologists, should use this opportunity. If there is anything positive, there's nothing much positive about this lockdown, but if there's anything positive, this has given us an opportunity for all of us as technologists to think how we can reshape, our equipment for future. And luckily, we are in a generation where internet is fast, we have all the technology, so we could still operate. But 15 years back, if this happened, it would have been a massive disruption. Now, talking about what we are doing, right? So we are already in a journey which was started a few years back. So we are slightly ahead of the curve. We have not waited for a pandemic to kick in. But for us, it was very simple, right? It started as a cost out initiative. We wanted to drive more efficiency at a cheaper cost. However, what we have learned quickly is agility and speed, which cloud is giving to you, which Andrew mentioned. When this happened, right, COVID happened, we were already well positioned in a way that we were able to move some of our, engineering heavy applications, which we never thought we would have moved to cloud. But there was a strong push. There was a need to do it, which drive those kind of digitalization, and our workforce could work from home. So that one aspect of it. Second is actually we are continuously looking to see where we can consolidate our footprint of vendors, right? And we also believe that building in-house sometimes is, especially if you don't have the right skill set. And with cloud, you also get a feature of plug and play, right? Because you don't have to, if you are looking platform as a service, you don't have to worry about the security aspects of it, right? Or if you're actually buying infrastructure as a service or SaaS, it all gives you flexibility to focus on what you are good at, and you let the rest of the things taken care of by the provider itself. So it's massive efficiency for me personally.
Exactly, George.
Very good. Yoti, then what's your assessment of cloud adoption? And in I think more particular, you can give us an overview of what sectors have adopted cloud really well, and where you see some of the challenges and transformations taking place well, and maybe some of the sectors that are still catching up. So what's your view across all industries in the Middle East and the adoption of cloud technology?
Sure, Bernard. I think I'm going to pick up on a few comments that Andrew and George made around cloud. And I think when we talk to CIOs, senior IT decision makers, but also line of business executives, the C-suite essentially, we're seeing primarily three broad triggers for the cloud, right? The first one, which I think was mentioned, was around agility. And I think previously it was more of a cost discussion. How do I take the costs out? George mentioned it in Petrofac's case. It really started off as a cost management initiative, moving from capex to opex. So that's one trigger. The other trigger was around operational efficiencies, right? How do I, especially in the current environment, build more operational efficiencies within the organization, which is becoming critical. The third area I would say, of course, is the agility part of it. Right? So how can I build a more agile organization to be able to scale up or scale down, as needed? Now, within this region, we are seeing a significant explosion in public cloud spending across pretty much every single industry. If you just think about the disruption that we're seeing in healthcare, in education, in retail, banking, financial services, or even government and public services, we are seeing significant uptake of cloud across the board. In fact, our own research suggests that public cloud spending is growing threefold. Is going to grow threefold over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're seeing a significant amount of investments being made in cloud across this region. Now, there are some other interesting trends that we're seeing. First of all, organizations are taking a more hybrid approach. So they're building a more hybrid, multi-cloud hybrid approach to their cloud strategies. In some cases, we are seeing a cloud-first approach in many organizations. Want to build that agility, they want to build that speed and resilience. We're also seeing greater investments in this region by the hyperscalers and the application providers, companies like Oracle. So we're seeing a lot more investments coming in, right? And as a result of that, the overall cloud ecosystem, we think, is going to evolve and is going to grow even more. So the first phase, in the first phase of COVID, we saw a lot of uptake for cloud in areas like business continuity, disaster recovery, digital commerce, CRM, as you'd expect. As we saw acceleration to digital, in the next phase, we're going to see a lot more around enterprise applications as companies and organizations modernize. So that's going to be the next big shift that we expect to see within this region.
Very good. And I was just looking through some of the questions and comments that have come in, and Mohammed is saying, what are some of the key takeaways with an eye on the future, and in particular, I guess the question is, what technology do we adopt that really helps us survive, empower, and prosper in this new brave world? So, in terms of longevity, Andrew, do you have any views on that in terms of what are the recommendations that you would advise or give to someone that says, okay, we want to build future-proof technology here that really is able to put our business in a better shape and help us really thrive?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Mohammed, and it deserves a very long answer. You'll be horrified to know, Bernard. So don't worry, I won't try and answer the very profound question in its entirety. I will comment on a couple of things, though. I think that if we've learned, every cloud has got some sort of silver lining, and there are a few silver linings to this dreadful pandemic. And one of the things that we've learned is that we need to take into account resilience in our organizations as well. It's not just enough to be super efficient and super automated. If you're not resilient, then you'll suffer. And we can see that happening today, Bernard, organizations that thought through resilience. Now, actually, I would suggest that us folks on this call just now, and many of you listening who have got IT backgrounds, and many people have got IT, resilience is a word we're reasonably familiar with. We think about resilience in IT. You tend to think about having redundancy in case one breaks down. You tend to think of modularity. Could I unplug that and plug? You tend to think of diversity. And I don't just mean in terms of humans, in ways of doing things. Could I do this thing in 4 different ways? Because if one of them's not working because of a pandemic or bad weather or some sort of catastrophe, maybe another one. We tend to think that way in IT. We've long had a history of needing to build resilient systems. And whether it's on our own premises or increasingly in the cloud, we look for resilience. And I think, Bernard, that sort of thinking needs to be applied to an entire organization now. Have I got a resilient supply chain? Have I got different sources that I can plug into? Have I got different ways of doing things? Not just in the IT sense, but in the entire sense of the business. So my first thought, Mohammed, is look out for things that support resilience and drive resilience. I think a lot of the boardrooms, a lot of the C-suites will be thinking over the coming months and years, how do we build resilience into our entire organization? So look out technologies that do that. And the other one is, I could highlight so many and go through them. The other one has been mentioned by both George and Yoti already, and that's the security aspect. I think we as a society, as a globe, as a human race, we haven't yet got to grips in its entirety of the incredible amount of data collection that can now take place. And what do we do about that? And ethically, what do we do? Legally, what do we do? Different states, different sovereign states, different jurisdictions have got different ideas. This will come through. This will come through. We will work it out as we worked out everything else, including vaccinations. We'll work it out as a human race. But there will be one constant. Whatever the ethics, whatever the law is, you can't possibly manage the data that we're now collecting if there's not security at the core of it. Other ideas about distribution and access can be built on top, but it must be deeply secure. So there's my thinking, Mohammed, for you. Look at resilience and look at security. I think these are big learnings and takeaways to come out of this pandemic. There's 2, but I could go on.
Very good. Bala Kumara is asking, what are your views on multi-cloud solutions?
I think it should be Oracle, of course. I mean, got to be Oracle, but realistically, of course, many organizations for very good reasons are using multi-cloud, which is why Oracle's got links to Microsoft, for example, allowing us to have workloads that use an Oracle database from Microsoft apps or vice versa. Sorry, Yoti, George, maybe you've got a thought on that.
Yeah, what are your views on multi-cloud? I think Yoti, you touched on this already, multi and hybrid. George, what's your view on that?
Look, it all depends on the organizational strategy and how big the organization is, right? If you're running a small enterprise, right, maybe you don't have scope for bringing multiple players. However, if you're running a big, massive enterprise, I think it's always a good idea to, have multi-cloud strategy, which underlines Andrew's point of resilience, right? Because at the end of the day, you are not creating over dependency in one vendor. But the way I want to look is, I don't want to look cloud. alone, right? What I'm looking is business outcome. What business outcome I'm achieving, right? Irrespective of the technology, irrespective of the vendor, right? And and the way you should look at it is how you can get that business outcome in the most efficient way with the most security. And we also need to think about not only the initial implementation, it's also about how are you going to live with it, right? The operational part of it, right? So to me, it all depends on what's your organization, what's your strategy, and make the right decision.
Absolutely. So you've been on a digital transformation journey. You've moved to the cloud. What would you say have been some of your the key challenges that you had to overcome? And have you got any tips for anyone embarking on their own digital transformation and cloud and transition to cloud journey? What would be your key takeaways, your key learning points from the journey that you've been on so far?
Absolutely. And this is my favorite part, by the way. Look, if you guys think, right, putting things from on-prem to cloud is so easy. We don't need all this, digital experts and CDOs. It's not as easy as the way we are saying. And this is where the challenges come, right? So this is, you should clearly understand what are you dealing with, right? So starting from regulatory requirements, there may be some part of your data or application which you choose to keep it on-prem. It's your decision that you don't want to keep it in public cloud or private cloud or whatever cloud it is, right? So you need to know what you're doing. Second, you should have a framework or a governance mechanism to make sure that people are sticking to that, right? We're not putting anything on cloud, right? Now, the third thing is actually where we will deal with fixing the basic stuff, right? So the challenge that most of the organizations see is actually they are already, I would say, kind of stuck with some legacy technology and application, which has dependency on business processes. How do you unplug those dependencies, right? Because end of the day, you don't want to break operations also, right? So the most of the technologies face is when they deal with some of the legacy technology and how do they completely come out of it without hurting the operations. And that's the time part, right? And once you have done all these parts in a very systematic way, actually, running your operations in cloud, it's not that easy. It's not that difficult. Sorry, it is easy.
Very good. Yoti, anything to add in terms of what you are seeing across industries in the region? What do you see as some of the biggest challenges around digital transformation and especially cloud adoption?
So specifically around cloud, as organizations transition to the cloud, there are 4 or 5 key challenges that organizations are talking about, right? I mean, George mentioned a couple of those on the data regulation, on the governance side. Of course, there are concerns, and organizations need to navigate through that. The other area is in terms of migration, so difficulties in migrating services data. That's come across a few times with organizations. I think the change management support that the organizations receive from their partners, from their vendors, has come through. So those are some considerations that organizations need to think about as they embark or transition to the cloud. There are, in some cases, there are concerns from companies and organizations around vendor lock-in. And George spoke about it. There is, depending on the size of the organizations, if you're going to go for a multi-vendor strategy or a single vendor strategy, I think there are some concerns that if you go with a single vendor, are there concerns or lock-in in that process? So these are, broadly speaking, some of the key concerns that as organizations have in the transition to the cloud. But having said that, some of the benefits that organizations have spoken about in terms of the agility discussion or the urgent need moving to the an OPEX model, or the operational efficiencies, or building the platform or the foundation for digital transformation. Cloud, far outweighs some of the benefits, far outweighs some of the challenges that organizations undergo. But I think the key message I want to give organizations is it's not a large scale big bang project. It is a journey that organizations need to think about as they embark on their cloud strategy. That's the key message I'd like to give everyone.
Very good. Andrew, you speak to lots of customers. You work with them on their cloud journeys. What are some of the key challenges you are seeing across the region, across your customers?
Well, I think a key challenge in every region, really, but one that's being overcome, if I may say, in my view, particularly well within the region, is the challenge of leadership and of vision. We use the word transformation a lot. It's not easy to transform. As Yoti's rightly said, the change management is a big piece of this. George, clearly your organization does enjoy strong leadership and this ability to form a vision. Here's where we're going. Here's the business outcome we need. We are going to be resilient. We're going to be competitively advantageous, and we're going to make good use of technology in so doing. I think some of the most foresighted organizations that I've had the pleasure to get to know, Bernard, have been those that have actually recognized their ability to adopt new technology is itself a competitive advantage. So it's not just I need to adopt that to get to get the advantage. It's the faster I can adopt new technologies, the more competitive I'll be. If I can get smart people like George looking after how quickly I can adopt technologies, whether it's a chatbot today, AI tomorrow, or something beyond this, the faster I can learn to adopt these new technology, the better. So if you combine that vision with an awareness and a belief in how technology can support, I think that's one of the, a meta challenge. And actually it stems, even higher than individual organizations, right into governmental structures, the degree to which governments and leaders are forming visions and looking forward and saying, there's where we want to go. That is an awful lot of the challenge, knowing what to do when you get out of bed in the morning and not having any doubts about it helps a great deal. And I've seen that challenge being overcome very effectively within this region and with a number of customers of ours.
That's good. Yeah, whenever we talk about digital transformation and moving to the cloud, I think there's a technical challenge of making it work. But I think, as you highlighted, a leadership challenge as well. That is probably even more important.
I think so.
There's a cultural challenge. There's a skills challenge.
I think, by the way, that's changed, Bernard. I think if you asked me a few years ago, I would have said there's a lot of technical challenges. There's a lot of investment and effort has gone into reducing the technical. I accept, George, it's not simple. But the technical element, I would argue, we've cracked to a large extent a number of the technical problems, and we're left with the issues of change management and legacy, etc. I would argue, of course, there's a way to go, but I think the technical challenges are now a lesser part.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Andrew. What I'm seeing is that the technical challenge is the easiest to overcome. I think the one that lots of companies underestimate is the leadership challenge, the strategy challenge, and the culture and skills challenge. So, George, if you look across technology, across skills and culture, across leadership, actually aligning your business processes, where has it been hardest for you? What has been the biggest challenge?
So I can address this in two parts. Like historically, the cultural part was more challenging. Technically, something that you have to fix, right? It's no one can help you because you are the technologist, you are the most knowledgeable person on that topic in the room. But what I'm also seeing right now is things are changing, even the cultural aspects. And I would like to, attribute that to the kids and the education today. So all these people who are the CISO, the leadership that we are talking about, who we are trying to influence, historically, the biggest challenge that any technologists will face is educate them on technology, talk to them about a language they understand. However, what I'm seeing is nowadays, all of them have either a kid going to school or college, and those kids are on technology, right? So they are the teachers. So people are way more educated on things than they used to be. And I myself get surprised sometimes when I'm in conversation with people I think like non-technical, but the kind of knowledge they bring, the kind of I'm like, oh my God, I need to go and ensure that the kids are the best teachers for most of the people, and that's helping to ease the cultural resistance a little bit.
Absolutely right, George.
Very good. I had a few questions come up around security. Chendi asking here again, can you talk a little bit more about security and cloud? Yoti, do you want to have a go at that?
Well, it's a very broad topic, but if you think about digital trust or security, as I call it, digital trust programs, I really think that it's coming to the fore. As a number of organizations across industry are pivoting to digital or accelerating their digital transformation journeys and programs, security, in our view, is becoming a critical component of that as organizations are thinking about it, right? So security, in fact, we are seeing significant increase in investments by organizations in the Middle East around security. Initially a lot of investments around how do you manage the infrastructure, given that we had work from home or work from anywhere devices outside the network coming in, accessing applications and services. And so, security was, we saw a significant spike in spending around security back in Q2, Q3, and it continues to be the number one challenge and number one area of concern for CIOs. And I would take it a step further. I would say not just CIOs, but increasingly the entire C-suite, including the CEO's agenda. So, building digital trust, maintaining security is definitely a top 5 item for any CEO today, any serious CEO today. So, security in the context of cloud, of course, is an interesting conversation. But I would say kind of investments that organizations and vendors have made around securing cloud platforms, cloud services, it is less of a concern today than it was, a few years ago, right? And all the investments that are coming in, we are seeing in some cases organizations view increased security as a driver for cloud services. So that has changed remarkably over the last few years.
Yeah, and sorry, yes, George.
Can I add to what Jyoti mentioned? Completely agree with what Jyoti said. Just to add to it, like I also don't want anyone listening to this podcast feel like the moment you put things to cloud, you are secure and there is nothing you need to worry. So I need to be very clearly articulate the difference between what security cloud is giving and what security you have to take your skin, right? So cloud is going to take care of the platform part of the security. You don't have to worry about a breach because we're pretty sure that the controls built there will prevent a massive incident like that which can compromise your data. However, as an organization, you still need to define who should access what data, right? So identity and access management. And nowadays in security, we keep talking about zero trust, right? It's not a new concept, but it's a lot more prevalent now because never trust, always verify. So you have to have a good platform or a framework where you need to ensure that who's having the right access, right? And unless you do that, right, just ensuring that hey, everything is in cloud, that solve your problem. No, it does not.
Very good. I'm sure, Andrew, you've got something to say. Maybe in particular, giving us an overview of the latest generations of cloud computing and how they're now.
No, it's a fascinating question actually, and I remember very well actually being in Dubai a few years ago, probably about 8 or 10 years ago now, and at the time, the feeling was that cloud was less secure environment, and one biggest concerns about moving into cloud will I be secure? Now, of course, it's actually done a complete 180, and as you say, George, people realize that infrastructure-wise, moving into the cloud where you've got professionals looking after security is actually more secure very often. Couple of thoughts just to share with the audience here, and this is from a very much an Oracle perspective. A couple of thoughts. One, it's not easy to add security on afterwards. If you take a fundamentally insecure garden shed and put a big lock on the door, somebody's going to just come in the window or break the wall down. You really need to think about security from the outset. So I am going to do a little bit of an advertisement there, I'm afraid, Bernard, sorry, and say that, there's a generation 2 cloud has come along where really with the knowledge and the experience and the background of what happened in generation 1, we sat down at a blank piece of paper and said, what's the most important thing that worries the C-suite that needs to be looked after in a world where we all know the saying, data is the new oil, data is the new gold. It's security. and we need to build it in from scratch. And there's nothing, we can't add lock to the doors. We need to build it in from scratch. That's generation 2. The other comment I would make, which and I think this, George, relates very much to your comment about identity and access management. I think you're absolutely right. We can secure all we like from at the infrastructure level, but who gets access to what? I think here we have seen some of the latest and greatest advances in artificial intelligence helping us do that, and helping spot exceptions, helping spot issues. Why is that person who always accesses that data from this location at that time suddenly accessing this data from a different location at a different time? An awful lot of breaches in security would appear as exceptions, but only if you are awake 24/7 and able to monitor all activity would you even spot the exception. That's almost the definition of artificial intelligence. I think we're seeing massive advances there in helping us all keep our information, and by the way, I mean our information, as citizens, our information secure.
Absolutely. I was just looking at a few comments here on challenges, and Gareth is saying he believes 20 to 30% is technology.
Yeah.
Things like platform tools, networks and data, and actually 70% is culture, enterprise collaboration, leadership, change management, and skills. Do you agree with this, Yotti?
No, absolutely. I echo what Gareth has just commented, and I think as the other panelists have commented, it's really around the culture, right? What kind of a culture you want to build, the vision you have right at the top from the C-suite. It is a business project at the end of the day. This is not just an IT project; it's a business project. So some very valuable comments, and technology is going to underpin it, but really culture and all of the other pieces are extremely important and critical for a successful.
I hope, Gareth, and that proportion is, if anything, going even further down over time. The more that we put in effort into clouds, making them easier to migrate to, making them more autonomous and automated, the lower that component will be. Hopefully the overall effort is also going down, and the technology is an ever smaller part of it.
Very good. Let's look into the future then. So what I would like from all of you is a little idea of where things are going. So maybe George can tell us a little bit about what the plans are in Petrofac. Where do you want to take it next? And then maybe Yotti and Andrew, you can give me a feel for what some of the key technologies that you see on the horizon, some of the things that organizations should really start thinking about now to make the most of a new era post-COVID. So George, let's start with you. What's next for you? What's on your digital transformation wish list?
So it's already ongoing. So I cannot say it's a wish list. However, I think I have not emphasized on the automation journey, which we are already doing, right? So I think it's everywhere, right? So there's always, you see some manual repetitive work keep coming. And what I also saw is there's a cultural part where people feel that, okay, if I automate it, do I need to be there to do that job, right? There's always some fear of jobs related to automation. However, the way I would like to think here is the more you free up people from doing mundane, boring tasks, we're giving them opportunity to think creatively on what more they can do or what more impactful work they can do, right? So there's a lot of focus on automation. I mentioned multiple times about reducing my vendor landscape. I want to run, the way the perfect IT system which I will be visualizing is less number of people, less number of work, because things are all working super smart and smooth. And end of the day, we are here to drive more efficiency, right? So we need to make sure that we keep adapt, we keep change. What may work for you today or tomorrow may not work for you 2 years, 3 years, right? So you cannot stop innovating. You need to keep pursue for more and more excellence and opportunities. So I think that's where my wish list is. It sounds very easy, but it's very difficult to achieve.
Very good. Thank you. Yotti, if you put your future vision goggles on, what are you seeing there, especially for the region? What should people start thinking about now? What are the next big technologies on the horizon and the next challenges to tackle?
Well, I think a slightly broader view. I think if you look at how we've evolved over the last, take a short to medium term view, 12, 15 years, right? I think we started off with what I call experimentation, where a lot of the organizations looking at adopting the four pillars of industry transformation: cloud, analytics, mobile, social. So about 8 to 10 years ago, I think that was a conversation in the industry. We've got all these four new pillars. How are organizations going to adapt? And so organizations started to experiment with some of these technologies. The second phase is what I call is what we are currently undergoing, which is what I call multiplied innovation, right? Where organizations leveraging these innovation accelerators, AI, blockchain, robotics, drones, IoT, all of that, and really uses as a platform to digitally transform their organizations. The sense I have talking to CIOs and the C-suite across this region is that the tech industry and technology in general, I think, has seen so much disruption in the last 6-7 months that many organizations tell me that they are probably 3 to 4 years ahead of where they had planned to be at the end of this year. So it has really disrupted. The pandemic has really disrupted organizations in a wide range of areas. And I think the next phase is going to be, in my view, is going to be really around autonomy, right? So I think where machines and systems are going to will be making decisions either assisted by humans or completely on their own, right? So there's going to be a greater level of autonomy, and I think that specifically in this region, the one thing that stands out to me compared to other regions, because I track other regions around the world, is that the public sector in this region is undoubtedly taking the lead when it comes to transformation, right? And so when you talk about AI, when you talk about IoT, when you talk about blockchain, you talk about paperless technology, paperless strategy. You are seeing the government and public sector really taking the lead, and the private sector essentially is following what the public sector is kind of laying out, right, as their strategy. So, and that is in sharp contrast to what you see in other regions of the world, right? And so for me, I think what's really impressive is that given the focus on diversifying their economies, given the focus on building competitiveness, technology, I think, is very clear to everyone. Technology is really underpinning a lot of the strategies that the governments in this region are adopting. So that, I think, is very interesting to watch out for, because the private sector essentially is playing catch up, to be very honest.
Yeah, very interesting. Andrew, what are your future predictions? What future technologies do we need to watch? What trends are on the horizon?
Well, certainly, first of all, Bernard, I very much agree with Yoti's comment on the leadership from the public sector in the region. And I think that can have an enormous impact. And some of the first customers we saw post-COVID, the Ministry of Health in Saudi jumped on the case and had a chatbot, helping to respond to COVID-19 queries right away. And you're quite right, Yoti, that doesn't necessarily happen in every region around about the world, this readiness to take on board these newer technologies. Bernard, I think, again, stepping back a little bit, technology will always be aiming to do the same thing. The people want to be safe, people want to be healthy, people want to be happy, and they'll use all of the levers they've got at their disposal to do so. And technology has always done that. And when the problems were, I can't get enough potatoes out of the ground or something, technology came along and invented the tractor. When you couldn't get enough something from another country, technology invented the ship. But today's issues don't really need engines and gear wheels anymore. It's much more about information, the problems we need to solve, how we can trade between literally billions of people, and trust people that we'll never see and never meet, how we can deal with our environment. A lot of the problems this and subsequent generations face, very different from the ones our predecessor faced, and very much are roundabout information. So technology will turn. Instead of inventing engines, we'll now start inventing more and more technology that will help us with these problems. The big one, Bernie, you can feel me coming towards, and it's pretty obvious, honestly, and both George and Yoti have mentioned this. It is autonomy, and it's artificial intelligence. There's no question. We want to make life easier for ourselves. Now, there'll be bumps on the road. As George is quite right, people will feel their jobs threatened. I'm sure the person who used to grind flour between two very large stones, my great-grandmother did that, felt her job threatened by the water wheel grinding flour. I think as soon as she got a new job, she was probably quite pleased not to go back to it. And technology's got a history of doing that. People are worried for their jobs. I'm fairly sure in generations to come, people are going to look back and say, did you really drive a lorry for 4 days across Europe doing nothing but sitting with a wheel in front of you? Really? People are going to say that. I would never do that nowadays. So we will absolutely see the introduction of artificial intelligence assisting decision-making across the business, within IT, and we will see organizations, the faster you are understanding how to use that, how to make your employees, your partners, and your customers benefit from it, the better. So keep a close eye on artificial intelligence, and the fuel for artificial intelligence, once again, data.
Absolutely. So it's fueled by data. For me, AI is the most powerful technology humans have ever had access to. We need to make sure we use it well. And I think we were talking about cloud. Cloud enables us to use AI as a service. So it's easier than ever before to actually start using some of these technologies. It's not that you have to build everything yourself. Once you have your data in the cloud, you can simply switch things on and you can start using it. You can use recommendation engines. You can make your systems more efficient, and this can all happen nicely. Very good. That was fascinating. Thank you so much for your input today. As always, if any one of you want to re-listen to these conversations, you can do this on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, or you can listen to it on my podcast that is also available. Thank you so much. As always, let me know what you think. I was just looking at what more people are saying about the session. And we have Ibrahim saying, very informative. Thank you very much from Saudi Arabia. You're so welcome. It's nice to hear that. As I said, let me know what you think. Engage with us. Connect with Andrew, Yoti, and George on LinkedIn and other platforms so we can carry on this fascinating conversation around digital transformation and cloud. Thank you very much and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.